The conference room at Vancouver General Hospital was packed that Tuesday morning. 12 board members, 3 lawyers, and Dr. Patterson, the head of pediatric oncology. And when I walked through that door with my leather briefcase, Dr. Patterson's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. The room went completely silent. My daughter-in-law, Jessica, turned so pale I thought she might faint right there. Her lawyer, some slick young man in an expensive suit, immediately leaned over to whisper urgently in her ear, but I didn't look at either of them. I walked straight to the empty chair across from Jessica, set down my briefcase with a deliberate click, and said clearly, "Good morning, everyone. I'm Eleanor Winters, and I'm here to discuss the medical care of my granddaughter, Sophie." Let me back up 6 months to when this nightmare began. Sophie was 8 years old, the light of my entire world. She had her father's dark curls and this infectious laugh that could brighten the grayest Vancouver rain. My son David had died in a construction accident 3 years earlier when Sophie was just 5. It destroyed all of us. But I thought Jessica and I had grown closer through that grief. We'd supported each other, leaned on each other. I helped with Sophie 3 days a week while Jessica worked as a dental hygienist. We were family. Then last March, Sophie started getting tired. Not normal kid, tired, but exhausted. She'd fall asleep at the dinner table. She bruised easily. Jessica took her to the pediatrician, who ran some blood work. I'll never forget the phone call. Jessica was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Eleanor, it's leukemia. They said it's acute lymphoblastic leukemia." I was in my car within 5 minutes. We sat together in her living room in North Vancouver, holding each other while Sophie slept upstairs, oblivious to how her world was about to change. "We'll fight this," I told Jessica. "Whatever it takes. Sophie is strong. We're all strong." The first round of chemotherapy was brutal. Sophie lost her beautiful curls. She got so thin, but she was responding to treatment. Dr. Patterson told us there was a new clinical trial at BC Children's Hospital, a targeted immunotherapy that was showing remarkable results for kids who didn't achieve complete remission with standard chemo. The catch? It required both legal guardians to consent. Jessica had sole custody after David died, but as Sophie's grandmother and the person named in David's will as backup guardian, my signature mattered too. I signed immediately. This was Sophie's best chance. The trial had an 87% success rate, no question in my mind. But Jessica hesitated. "I need to think about it," she said. I stared at her in Dr. Patterson's office. "Think about what? This could save her life." "It's experimental, Eleanor. What if there are side effects? What if it makes things worse?" Dr. Patterson was patient, explaining that the trial had been through extensive testing, that the side effects were manageable, that this really was Sophie's best option. But Jessica just shook her head. "I need time. Time. Our granddaughter was fighting for her life, and she needed time." Over the next 2 weeks, I called Jessica every single day. "Have you decided?" She kept putting me off. Too busy. Too stressed. She'd think about it. Meanwhile, Sophie's window for the trial was closing. They only accepted patients within a specific time frame of their diagnosis. Then I noticed something strange. Jessica's Instagram account, which had maybe 500 followers before Sophie got sick, suddenly had over 15,000. She was posting photos of Sophie in the hospital, bald and fragile, with captions like, "My brave warrior princess," and fighting the battle of her life. The comments were full of prayers and heart emojis. I'm not on social media much, I'll admit. I'm 64 years old and still prefer phone calls to text messages. But my neighbor's daughter, who's good with computers, helped me look deeper. That's when I found Jessica's GoFundMe page. "Help Sophie Beat Cancer," the title read. The goal was $100,000. "For experimental treatments," Jessica wrote, "for medical bills, for giving Sophie the fighting chance she deserves." There were photos of Sophie I'd never seen before, ones that made her look even sicker than she was, and people were donating. As of that day, she'd raised $47,000. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I called Jessica immediately. "What is this fundraiser?" "Oh, that!" Some of my friends suggested it. You know how expensive cancer treatment is. Jessica, we're in Canada. Sophie's treatment is covered. Well, not everything. And I thought if we needed to go to the States, or where is this money going? Eleanor, I don't appreciate your tone. I'm Sophie's mother. I'm handling this. I drove to her house. When she opened the door, I could see she'd been shopping. New purse, expensive looking, designer jeans I knew cost at least $300 because I'd seen them at Holt Renfrew. Jessica, we need to talk about this fundraiser. She actually rolled her eyes. You're being paranoid. I'm allowed to accept help from people who care. Have you signed the consent form for Sophie's trial yet? I told you. I'm thinking about it. Her deadline is Friday. That's 3 days away. Then I guess I'd better decide by Friday. Something in her voice, this casual dismissiveness about our granddaughter's life, made my blood run cold. I left and went straight to my son David's best friend, Marcus, who's a lawyer. I showed him everything. The GoFundMe, the Instagram posts, the unsigned consent form. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression grave. Eleanor, I'm going to be honest with you. This looks bad. But proving financial exploitation and medical neglect in court takes time, months probably. Sophie doesn't have months. So what do? Document everything. Every conversation, every refusal, every social media post. And if she doesn't sign by Friday, we file for emergency guardianship. Friday came. Jessica didn't sign. She didn't even show up to the hospital appointment Dr. Patterson had scheduled specifically to review the trial one more time. She posted on Instagram instead a photo of herself at a spa in Whistler, taking a much-needed self-care day. Mama needs to recharge to be strong for my baby girl. Sophie asked me that afternoon in her small hospital room, Grandma, why isn't Mommy here? Did I do something wrong? I had to turn away so she wouldn't see me crying. No, sweetheart, you haven't done anything wrong. Mommy's just dealing with things her own way. Marcus filed the emergency petition that night. The hearing was set for the following Tuesday. But Jessica's lawyer got wind of it and requested mediation first, to be held at the hospital with Dr. Patterson present as a medical expert. Standard procedure, they said. A chance to resolve things without a court battle. Which brings me back to that conference room, where 12 people were now staring at me with expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. Jessica's lawyer spoke first. Mrs. Winters, this mediation is to discuss Sophie's best interests. I'm sure we can come to an agreement that— Before we begin, I interrupted, opening my briefcase, I'd like to submit some evidence to the mediator and Dr. Patterson. I'd spent the weekend printing everything. Screenshots of the GoFundMe page, Jessica's Instagram posts, showing a timeline of increasingly elaborate lifestyle purchases. Bank statements that Marcus had subpoenaed, showing Jessica's account balances. 3 months ago, before the fundraiser, she'd had $1,200 in her checking account. Now she had $52,000. Dr. Patterson's face darkened as he flipped through the pages. The mediator, a stern woman named Mrs. Kowalski, made notes without expression. But Jessica's lawyer had gone very quiet. These are Sophie's medical records, I said, sliding another folder across the table, showing every appointment Jessica has missed in the last 6 weeks, 11 total. I've attended all 11 with Sophie instead. And this, I placed a final document down with shaking hands, is a statement from Dr. Patterson detailing the 3 different treatment options Jessica has refused or delayed. That's not fair, Jessica burst out. I've been overwhelmed. I'm a single mother dealing with a sick child. You went to Whistler last weekend, I said quietly. You bought a $4,000 handbag. You posted about it on Instagram, Jessica. While Sophie was having a blood transfusion. How dare you spy on my social media? How dare you use my granddaughter's cancer to fund your lifestyle? Mrs. Kowalski held up a hand. Please, let's stay calm. Dr. Patterson, can you speak to the medical situation? Dr. Patterson cleared his throat. He looked directly at Jessica, and I could see the disappointment in his eyes. Sophie had a 92% chance of long-term survival if she'd started the immunotherapy trial 3 weeks ago when we first discussed it. Every day of delay decreases those odds. As of today, we're at 79% and dropping. If we wait another week, we may miss the window entirely. The room was so silent you could hear the ventilation system humming. I need to show the mediator something else, Dr. Patterson continued. He pulled out his laptop and turned it to face Mrs. Kowalski. These are direct messages Jessica sent to my office manager asking if there were any other trials or treatments that might require fundraising. She specifically asked about experimental treatments in the United States that wouldn't be covered by provincial health insurance. Jessica's face had gone from pale to red. I was just asking questions. You asked if Sophie's condition could be made to look worse in medical photos, Dr. Patterson said, his voice hard. For fundraising purposes, I felt sick. Jessica's lawyer was frantically whispering to her, but she shook him off. You're all ganging up on me. I'm her mother. Then act like it, I said, standing up. I couldn't sit anymore. My whole body was trembling with rage and grief. Sign the consent form. Let Sophie have the treatment that could save her life. That's all I'm asking. And what? Just hand over my daughter to you? Let you play mommy? This isn't about me, Jessica. This has never been about me. It's about Sophie. Mrs. Kowalski intervened. Miss Reeves, I'm recommending immediate temporary custody transfer to Mrs. Winters, pending a full investigation into the use of fundraised money. Dr. Patterson, please provide the necessary medical consent forms. Jessica's lawyer tried to object, but Mrs. Kowalski cut him off. This child's life is in danger. Your client has demonstrated a pattern of medical neglect and potential financial fraud. We can do this the easy way, or I can call a judge right now and make it a court order. Jessica stood up so violently her chair fell over. You can't do this. I already have, Mrs. Kowalski said calmly. Sign the custody transfer, or I'm calling security and the police. For a moment, I thought Jessica might actually fight. Her hands were clenched into fists, her face twisted with rage. Then something seemed to break. She grabbed the pen, Mrs. Kowalski offered and scrawled her signature across the temporary custody document. I want her back, she hissed at me. You'll see, I'll get her back. She stormed out. Her lawyer gathered his papers and followed, mumbling something about being in touch. When the door slammed behind them, I nearly collapsed. Doctor, Patterson caught my elbow, guiding me back to my chair. You did the right thing, he said gently. Did I? I just took a child away from her mother. You saved that child's life. Let's go talk to Sophie about starting treatment. Sophie began the immunotherapy trial the next day. I moved into Jessica's house to be close to the hospital and to keep Sophie in familiar surroundings. Jessica's landlord was surprisingly understanding when I explained the situation. Turned out Jessica was 3 months behind on rent, despite having $52,000 in the bank. The treatment was hard. Sophie was brave, so much braver than any 8-year-old should have to be. She asked about her mother only once. Is Mommy mad at me? No, baby. Mommy is dealing with her own problems. But I'm here. I'll always be here. Marcus and a forensic accountant tracked where all the GoFundMe money went. Luxury purchases, trips, spa days, designer clothes. Less than $3,000 of the $54,000 raised had gone to anything related to Sophie's care, and most of that was for gas money to the hospital. The Vancouver police launched an investigation into charity fraud. Jessica tried to fight the custody arrangement. She hired a better lawyer, showed up to court in borrowed clothes to look humble, claimed she'd been suffering from depression and anxiety. The judge was sympathetic but firm. Your daughter's cancer is in remission. Thanks to treatment you repeatedly refuse to authorize. Mrs. Winters has demonstrated consistent, appropriate care. Custody remains with the grandmother, pending completion of the fraud investigation. 6 months later, Sophie's leukemia was in complete remission. Her hair grew back, curlier than ever. She started grade 4 at a new school near my house in Kitsilano. She made friends. She laughed again. Jessica moved to Toronto. The fraud charges were settled with probation and restitution, most of which she'll probably never pay. She sends birthday cards sometimes. She never asks to see Sophie. Dr. Patterson told me last month that Sophie's prognosis is excellent. They're talking about her being cancer-free, not just in remission. She wants to be a doctor when she grows up. specifically a pediatric oncologist like Dr. Patterson. I look at her now, sprawled on my living room floor doing homework, completely absorbed in a math problem, and I still can't quite believe how close we came to losing her. Not to cancer, to something far more insidious: greed, vanity, and a mother who forgot that her child's life was worth more than Instagram likes and designer handbags. People ask me if I regret what I did, if I feel guilty about taking Sophie from her mother. The truth is complicated. I never wanted to be a mother again at 64. I'd raised my son, buried my son, and thought my parenting days were behind me. But Sophie needed someone to fight for her when she couldn't fight for herself. Someone to put her life ahead of everything else. Would I do it again? Without hesitation, every single time. What I learned through this ordeal is something I wish I'd never had to learn: that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect our children are the very ones we need to protect children from. That advocating for a child, especially in medical situations, isn't about being right or winning. It's about being present, being persistent, and being willing to make the hard choices even when they break your heart. If you're in a situation where you suspect a child isn't receiving proper medical care, document everything: times, dates, witnesses, conversations. Don't assume the system will automatically protect the child. Sometimes you have to be the one to speak up, even if it makes you unpopular, even if it destroys relationships. And if you're raising funds for a sick child, please use that money for what you promised. Those donors gave from their hearts, believing they were helping save a life. Betraying that trust doesn't just hurt them. It hurts every legitimate fundraiser, every family genuinely struggling with medical expenses, and most of all, it hurts the child whose face you're using to solicit sympathy. Sophie is safe now. She's thriving. And every time I see her smile, I know that walking into that conference room with my briefcase, facing down the board and Jessica and all those lawyers, was the most important thing I've ever done. Not just as a grandmother. As a human being who refused to look away when someone vulnerable needed help. That's what love really is. Not the Instagram posts, not the performance of caring. It's showing up. It's doing the hard things. It's fighting even when you're scared. And it's never, ever giving up on the people who matter most.